Hey y'all, what is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba from Miami, Melba for Justice, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and it is time for another Mondays with Melba. So, we are in the throes of election season. The general election is coming up in November, first Tuesday in November. And folks who may have a felony conviction in Florida may be wondering, what do they need to do to be able to vote in the state of Florida? So I'm bringing on Alex Saiz, who knows all things voting, and he's going to give us the lowdown. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us on Mondays with Melba.
Thank you for having me, Melba. You know how much I'm always available when you need me.
You are the best. So, can you remind everyone a bit about yourself, your practice, and a little bit about the background of how you came to this work?
Sure. So I graduated from law school in 2009. I've been a lawyer in Florida since 2011. I mostly spent my time in criminal defense. I'm going on 13 years now of criminal defense work. For the last 3 years, I've been the director of legal services for the Florida Justice Center, which is a nonprofit legal aid that assists people who've been criminal justice affected. So we're talking about sealing and expunging criminal records, seeking pardons, seeking executive clemency, and dealing with people who are convicted felons who want to try to get their rights to vote back.
That is awesome. I'm loving that. And of course, you know how I feel about the Florida Justice Center as a former vice chair. So big love to all the work that you're doing. So we all heard about, Amendment 4 in 2018. Yay, we voted yes. Not to be confused with the Amendment 4 this year that you also vote yes to. Let's be clear. But this was Amendment 4 in 2018, and that allowed people with felony convictions the right to vote, or did it? So can you share a little bit about the process, what happened there, and where that leaves people now?
So let's start with the old system. The old system was you're convicted of a felony, you lose your right to vote in the state of Florida, and you don't get it until you get either your restoration of your rights from the office of the governor. It was a panel that would be put together of the governor, and all the executive offices in the state. You would have to go up, apply, go to Tallahassee, and the number of people who needed this versus the number who actually got it in terms of get rights restored was pitiful. So after Amendment 4, it basically said, okay, there has to be a pathway for people to get their rights to vote back after they've been convicted of a felony. Now, what the belief was, what people were voting for was if your sentence is completed, that meant you were done with jail, you were done with prison, you were done with probation, you were no longer on supervision, that you would get your right to vote back. However, when the law was actually passed, a term was added that basically made it that you had to finish paying any and all money owed to the court. That could be restitution, that could be court costs, that could be cost of supervision. You have to be completely done with your case. And what we realized was, unfortunately, because clients can have cases in different counties, and each county can have different rules on how they keep records, that a lot of people didn't know either how much they owed or what was still outstanding. So because of that, they didn't pay that money. And they found out they could not vote until that money was paid. And that's where we are now. In order to vote in Florida after you've been convicted of a felony, you have to have all of your jail time finished, any and all incarceration, all probation finished, and pay off all money that's owed to the court.
Now, when you say money, does this mean, like, for instance, we know like restitution, obviously, if you owe whatever, you stole somebody's iPad and you owe $700 in restitution, we know that has to be paid. But what about like your court fees, like your fines, fees, things that are like, cost of supervision is X amount, or you have a cost of investigation that gets levied as part of your plea or whatever?
I think until people actually walk into court and watch how some of these cases close, they don't realize how many fees are attached to these cases. Now, I think we agree, the little old lady who gets robbed of, $50 has to be made whole. And we understand that. But the issue is when you close a felony case, you could have hundreds of dollars in different fees and costs associated with that case. So let's say, for example, you have two clients. Both of them are convicted of possession of cocaine. Both of them get credit time served. That means whatever time they've served in jail will be their sentence. Both of them get court costs in the amount of $450. If client A pays that $450 and has no other outstanding cases or fees, he can vote. Client B doesn't have the $450, that client can't vote. So the question I think is fair to ask is, are we taking away people's rights because they were convicted of cocaine possession? Or are we taking away their rights because they don't have $450? And that's where it gets very troubling, because we're now saying the morality of voting isn't tied to the conviction or to the crime. It's tied to the ability to pay the government afterwards. And that's where I think there's a mistake in the process.
So what is the process now for someone who has a felony conviction? They're not sure if they owe fines and fees, but they want to register to vote. But what can you walk us through step by step what someone should do?
Absolutely. So my big issue is the responsibility is on the person registering to determine whether or not they're eligible. That's a big deal. And I try to explain that to people. Let's say you go, the most common person or entity that's registering people to vote in the state of Florida is actually the DMV. The DMV will give you forms saying, hey, would you like to register? There's a small box on the bottom that says something to the effect of, I've never been convicted of a felony, or if I was, my rights have been restored. Most lawyers don't actually know what that means, let alone the general public. Clicking that box or checking that box by itself is a third-degree felony in the state of Florida, because you being wrong is interpreted as you committing fraud to register to vote. So the first question I have for everybody is, I tell everybody who has been arrested before, you need to run a background check on yourself, because the person who needs to know this is you. So when we go through this process, and I tell people, oftentimes, and this is not an insult, oftentimes the person who knows the least about how their case resolved is my client. They will sometimes leave court and tell you a case has been dismissed when it hasn't. They got a withhold of adjudication, which is a specific type of way a case closes, when they didn't. They pled to a misdemeanor when actually they pled to a felony. And just being wrong on that can be the crime. So I tell everybody, you want to speak to somebody, and I would always suggest going to the Florida Justice Center or to our website, fljc.org, and we have a button that says request assistance. We want to run those background checks because we want you to do a thorough investigation. We want everyone to be able to vote, but at the same time, I want everyone to be able to vote legally. That's the important part. And so if you're telling me, Alex, I had a case and I just don't know how it resolved, let's work together. Let's find that information. A story I often tell that was, very sad, but one of our legal clinics, we had a woman come to our clinic, and she said, you know what? I was convicted of a felony in 1994 in Miami-Dade. I know I'm a convicted felon. I've never voted. I never applied to go to college. I know that world was all cut off for me. I didn't have those opportunities because I was a convicted felon. I just want to know if you can help me out with some information. Took us about 5 minutes to look up her case and find out it was actually dismissed.
No.
She had never been convicted, but never had the money to be able to have a lawyer sit with her and discuss this issue. She was self-eliminating. Now, does that mean I want people to just vote and see what happens? No, but I would rather spend a Saturday talking to 500 people about their criminal records than to have 500 people not vote because they genuinely did not understand what happened in court.
Wow. I think that's the perfect example of how folks get confused because, and it's not to their benefit, right? So it's easy for someone to dismiss and be like, oh yeah, of course you didn't remember that you pled guilty and it was a conviction because that's convenient, right? Yeah. But no, the reality is it's so overwhelming. A lot is happening, at fast pace. And you're just like, wait, if I say yes, does this mean I get to go home? Okay,
yeah. Cool. And as a person who was in court every single day representing clients for 8 years, I had clients who came in and would say, wouldn't ask what happened in court. They would just say, can I go home now? And you had an obligation to sit there and say, this is what happened. Your case was dismissed. You want to expunge your record. This is how to do that. But oftentimes my clients are so terrified to be in court. They're in a place where in their history, in the history of their family and friends, nothing good happens in that building. Yeah. And when they get told to leave, they just want to flee. They just want to get out of there. Thank you, goodbye.
Right.
And so then their entire life has been affected. And you would, to my friends or people in my family, I might say, hey, go to a lawyer, pay $500 of a consultation fee and answer this. That is so out of the realm of possibility for so many people in our community that they just don't have that option. So it's much better for them to just stay home and stay quiet than to go through those procedures. That's why organizations like ours are so important, to get people that information and give them the opportunity to do better.
Yeah. So, all right. So you have somebody who has a felony conviction. They call up FLJC. You do the background check. What happens next? What's sort of the next steps, and how long does it take to get registered?
So first step we're going to do is we're going to look up, if somebody tells me they've been arrested in Miami-Dade County, for example, I'm starting by searching Miami-Dade County. I'm looking for all arrests you've had and what the status is of all those cases. But I'm also going to ask you if you've ever lived anywhere else. I've had college students who will tell me I've lived in Miami their whole lives, and then I find that case for that bad driving case in Alachua County when you were at UF, or Leon when you were at FSU, and I get the, oh yeah, that case.
It's that, yep.
But that's important, because you can be perfectly within your right to vote with all your Miami cases and be disqualified because of Alachua County or something else. So we're going to find every case. Then we're going to go through the actual court record, because we want to find out, were you given court costs? Almost guarantee you were. Was there restitution? Was it all paid off? Can we see the record of everything that's been paid off? The classic example, we get a person who gets arrested, one felony, let's say a grand theft, and they get what's called credit time served, which is a relatively minor offense, but major, very serious, because it makes you a convicted felon. You had to pay $300 in court costs, and I will look through and I will see that those are paid. I go through those records. You didn't have probation. You didn't have restitution. Once you've completed your terms, completed your sentence and paid that off, now we can go forward. Now, what we will do on complicated cases is we will get this information, get these documents, and actually send it to the Department of Elections for an opinion letter. We believe this person can vote. Can you confirm? Now, why are we doing this? Because the worst scenario for us is you vote, somebody says it's not valid, and you wind up in court. I want to show the judge and jury and the state attorney's office a paper trail of all the steps you took to confirm. Here are her receipts from her conviction. Here's the letter, the background check that we did through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Here's the opinion letter from the Department of Elections. When people talk about that, we can sometimes get criticized for trying to be too thorough. It's not a quick process, but here's the situation. When my head hits that pillow at night, I want to know I have not set up anybody for that knock on the door saying, hey, the police are here. Oh, what happened? Do you think I stole a car? Do you think I have an illegal gun? No, you voted in a municipal election illegally. And that's something we can't allow.
And the sad part is we saw that play out
Absolutely.
in 2022, where literally SWAT was descending on people's homes talking about, you voted. And the people looking at them like, but I paid my fines and fees. What's the problem? And even the cops themselves were confused, like, yeah, dude, sorry. I think you should probably fight this because we don't know.
Yeah. When the cops are saying, yeah, really sorry about this. We don't know what's going on here, but we were told to arrest you. And my concern with all of those things is, like I said, it puts the onus, the responsibility of making a legal determination on the individual, not on their lawyer. It's not a defense to say, well, when I took the plea, my lawyer didn't mention anything about the conviction. Mm-hmm. That's where I get very nervous, because and I'm not proud of this, but I do answer honestly. I've had numerous family members who've been involved in the criminal justice system. And I talk to members of my own family about, what happened in court, and they will tell me they don't know, they're not sure, it's not clear. If I told them, now fill out this government form, and by the way, your freedom is on the line, they'd be terrified.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want that. If I wouldn't want that for members of my family, I don't want that for anybody in my community.
So if folks came to you, let's say today, and they're returning or have felony convictions, is there any pathway for them to be able to vote this November, or are they now looking for 2026, 2028?
So the first step, the big issue is it depends. I'm going to give you the worst lawyer answer in the world.
It depends.
We have to do a check on the criminal record first. So, for example, like I said, that person who got their first felony conviction, only arrest ever, can we, find court costs? Can we expedite that and try to get them an answer as quick as possible? Absolutely. The ones that are a little bit more complicated are people who have felony convictions from other states, because we have to interpret the law as it applies in those states, and also individuals who have multiple felony convictions. We've had people coming up to us with convictions from the 80s, the 70s. Hard to get those records, and so it depends. I would much rather have everybody reach out for us, try to get an official answer case by case, than for any hard and fast rules. Because like I said, once I had that woman who said that she did not know she had been convicted, I knew at that point I'd rather have the meeting with everyone than not. We had one case where we were able to work with the state attorney's office. A man had been arrested one time in 1986 for cocaine possession. That's it. He had set up his own business, but could not actually operate it because he was a mechanic, but couldn't get licensed because he was a convicted felon. In that case, we actually spoke to the state attorney's office in one county that was willing to actually vacate his conviction.
Yeah.
That person went from completely ineligible to eligible to register that day. So again, does that story apply to every single person? No, but reach out to us, reach out to an attorney. Let's start the process of figuring it out for each person so we can get you voting. Because a lot of people, I love when people say, all right, I'm not going to vote in this election, I'll vote in the next one, because we all know you're going to reach out to us in October of the next election when there's not enough time. 2 years seems like a lot, but life catches up to you real quick.
Real quick. So this is your call. If this applies to you, friend, family member, whatever the case may be, definitely hit up Alex and the team at FLJC. The website is www.fljc.org. I will be sure to drop it in the comments as well as in the body of the description so that folks have an easy way to be able to click the link and get the help that they need. Alex, final words.
If I can tell one quick story, the only reason I'm with the Florida Justice Center, I saw them advertising an event and agreed to volunteer. I reached out to volunteer. It was when I found out that Melba was attached to and working with them. Then I had a formal meeting with her and the executive director that I actually came on as director of legal services. Because if you can trust anybody in this community, I trust Melba.
Alex, you are the best. Thank you,
Melba.
And thank you for the work that you're doing, because again, this is huge. It's definitely a gap that's needed because again, the government's not doing it for you. The supervisor of elections may be well-meaning, but can't check that for you, but FLJC can. So thank you for that. And
thank you so much.
And everyone, take good care, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.